Hey guys, it's Sign here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're doing another anime movie review. We're looking at My Hero Academia You're Next, which is movie 4 in the series. And it's another one of those movies that can kind of fit into canon, but it doesn't like essentially have to happen, right? I think broadly speaking, this one is probably the least important to the overall canon of the story compared to the other 3 movies, right? But if you're looking for where it fits canonically, I don't know if there's an official, what's it called? An official word on this, but I would definitely say that it happens after Dark Deku, after he comes back to UA, before the final war starts, right? Which is more or less when I stopped reading, so this is perfect because I was not missing any context whatsoever for this, right? So Deku is back at UA. He and his friends know what his powers are, right? The one for all, they know that it exists, and they even mentioned that it's cool. And Ippon Josei, the like blue giraffe lady that's super tall and pretty, she lives at UA. We get to see them at the end of the movie, and Japan is in shambles, but the heroes are still kind of going through the motions to try to save Japan, right? All for One and Shigaraki don't play a part in this at all. The League of Villains don't play a part in this at all. No one else does. Like, this is a purely, like, it happens within this time period, but it is wholly irrelevant if you don't really care, right? Like, you don't have to watch it to understand anything about the movie, right? Or you don't have to watch it to understand anything about the series. Let's see. I would say that this is a 7 out of 10 movie. I think it's fine. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's amazing either. I think that the vast majority of its value comes from it being related to an IP that I care about, which is MHA. And some of the animation is pretty awesome, right? But broadly speaking, I don't find this movie to be particularly amazing or even that well, like, thought out. I think that a lot of the problems that come out through the movie that are supposed to be full of tension are actually pretty simplistic and easy to solve with stuff that has been previously established to exist in the series. And so it feels a bit lackluster in my opinion. And I think the aesthetics and the evil characters in this movie are pretty cool. I like them better than the ones from the last movie. And I would say that this is probably the 3rd best movie out of the 4, right? Number 2 is probably my favorite, although it does have a bit of a crack ending there when Deku gives his powers to Bakugo. Number 1 is fundamentally fine. Like, there's nothing particularly wrong about it, and some of those final scenes in the fight are really awesome, so I really do like it a lot, and I would rewatch it quite often if I had the access to it. I mean, I own the CD, but I can't play it because I don't have a DVD player, right? So otherwise I would watch it pretty often, but since I don't have access to a way to play it, it's pretty hard for me to do. This is rewatchable, but it's not fundamentally all that interesting to me. And World Hero Mission is probably the weakest one in my opinion, at least because it is the one that attracts me the least. I don't like the secondary movie exclusive characters in that movie. I think the design for them is mostly pretty lame. Yeah, I guess that's basically it. So 7 out of 10 movie. Let me explain kind of the concept here. So it's if you took film gold and you took the main bad guy character from that, Goldino I think is his name, and then you made like a Uta based plot line from film red, and you turned it into something that fits into the My Hero universe. That's basically what this is. And then you also decided that some of the best stuff out of My Hero Academia was when All Might loses his powers, the final fight between him and All for One, and the first fight that he had against Anomu. And you decided that was the best stuff out of My Hero Academia, and you made something that was more or less really nostalgic for it, right? That's basically what this movie is. And if I describe it like that, there's nothing wrong with it, right? It doesn't come off as bad or anything. But I think that the execution is pretty poor because a lot of the elements about the story that are supposed to be exciting and interesting aren't really all that special because they're easily solvable. So let me explain some of the plotline and elements here that are important. I guess the most important bit is the world building aspect of this crime family from MHA's version of Europe. I think they're supposed to be Italian because their name is like Galdino or something, or Golino or something like that. And this evil organization is led by a guy that thinks he's like All Might. And he has this power called alchemy, which allows him to transfigure matter from one like appearance to another, right? So he has alchemical powers, and mostly he just uses them to make himself look like All Might and mess with things to create other things, right? And so he kind of has a power similar to something like Bullet from One Piece film Stampede, I guess is what the one. Yeah, it is from Stampede. But his powers are more generic, right? And Bullet is like mechanical stuff only, right? And so I think that's probably the most interesting bit. This guy that thinks he's All Might is basically using All Might as a way to like shortcut himself into power by seeming like someone powerful, by acting like someone powerful, and then by saying that he stands for the same ideals as this powerful person. The thing is that everyone easily understands that he's just evil, and he's just kind of like messed up in the head, right? And he has a group of underlings, right? And all of these underlings are vastly more interesting than him, at least appearance-wise. Even though we don't really get anything out of them. One of them is like a funky little monkey guy that has like a giant ogre-looking guy next to him, and they're like a team. There's one guy that's like a dungeon master, and he likes to dress like a wizard. There's one guy that can stop and start time, and then there's another guy that's like Mr. Compress. And then there's this lady who looks gorgeous and super sexy, and she's dressed like the vampire lady that was really popular a few years ago. That's like gigantic, right? And she has like a Black Widow aesthetic, because that's like her whole thing, right? She's like a dangerous hot lady from an Italian mafia family, and she has mental powers, right? And then you have these other two characters. So you have this character that looks like Aizawa. Like, basically, he almost looks exactly like Aizawa, but he has like a butler aesthetic to him, and he has a missing eyeball, and he has a cool mechanical motorcycle. And the lady that he's attached to is this lady called Anna, who basically has trigger, right? Like, is that what it's called? Yeah, the drug that gives people amplified powers. She basically, her quirk is just trigger, right? And so she's important because the mafia family stole her away from the Aizawa looking guy in order to use her powers to increase their own. And the thing is that if these people, both Anna and the people that are using her, are supposed to be super rich mafia family type people, they could have just bought Trigger. There is no need for this female character to exist at all, right? And the other thing is that Anna's power damages her, and also if it's used too often, it can actually become dangerous to her because she goes out of control, right? If she uses it too much, it activates, and then it can't be turned off. And so she fears for her life and the life of others because of this horrible kind of curse version of her quirk that she has, right? So she's kind of like airy and Overhaul at the same time. And again, if fucking what's his name, Aoyama, the I Can't Stop Twinkling guy, if he got to get what's his name, All for One to give him a quirk, she could have easily found All for One with all the money that she had and told them, hey, take this away from me, make me quirkless. Like, the problem isn't necessarily the way that the story unfolds. It's that fundamentally these problems should not exist, because these people have the ability to get rid of their problems or solve their problems, depending on which side you're looking at, without having to include each other into their problems, right? And the other thing is that I didn't really like here is that broadly speaking, the action stuff was fun and enjoyable, but it felt like for a long part of this movie, Izuku was underpowered as hell. Like, this guy has All Might's powers and 6 other powers alongside them that he could use to basically end this whole thing immediately if he chose to. But for whatever reason, it seems like he's waffling the whole time. Like, he's not really trying to solve the problem. And the problem, or like the issue that I have with this, isn't necessarily that he's not strong enough to solve the issue, because ultimately the point of Deku is that he's supposed to be someone that has unlimited power, but still chooses to rely on others because that is the fundamental way in which society can advance, when we rely on each other and don't force ourselves to be beholden to a single person, right? Like, I understand that thematically that is the point of Deku, right? But if Deku has the chance to end it all with a single awesome superpowered kick, he should do that, and he chooses not to throughout this movie multiple times. And it's ultimately just so that Bakugo and Todoroki can show up at the end and help him fight. And the thing is that ultimately Deku is the one that beats the guy anyways, and the other two are useful but not entirely necessary. And so it just comes off like Deku is waiting for these guys to show up just so they can fight him together without actually it being necessary. And that bothers me because it makes me feel like I'm wasting my time, right? Like, if I'm seeing something and it feels like the characters are just spinning their wheels to wait for something else to happen, in this case, that the other characters show up, it means that the story was written badly because it doesn't hide that fact well enough, right? I understand that that is how narratively things need to work out because that's what they wanted to tell, but they needed to do more work in the narrative to make that important and to make that fact hideable, and they chose not to. And I think that that's lazy, right? That I don't think that's good. And the other thing is that the fight ends, and it seems like the movie's gonna start wrapping up, and then the fight continues on afterwards because the bad guy comes back, and he comes back in a really awesome way. Like, it looks awesome and really cool, and the final blow after that is really awesome and really cool. But don't give me a false ending. Like, you already made me think that you were wasting my time, and then you give me an ending, and then you force me to have a second ending that's exactly the same, because ultimately it's just Deku and crew punching the guy hard until he dies, and then doing it twice. Like, that is bad writing. Like, that feels like it was done poorly, and that's not really enjoyable. That makes it seem like I'm wasting my time, right? So that's fundamentally why I don't really like this movie as much as the other ones. I don't think it's particularly bad. Like I said, like, ultimately while I was watching, I still enjoyed myself, right? And so in that sense, it succeeds at being a movie, as something that I can use to enjoy life for 2 hours without really thinking about anything else. But the problem is that as a kind of like good piece of literature or a good piece of fiction or whatever you're gonna call it, like objectively well plotted, it is not, and that is disappointing, right? So those are my thoughts on this movie. They're significantly more negative than I would have liked it to be, and I think it's not really structured all that much, but I don't really think that I need to go too much more in depth with this because I gave you all of the broad points there. So I'm not really going to say too much else if I talk about it again. So I think this is a good review for the whole movie. Let me know what you thought down below if you watched it. And if you haven't, I think there's another week left of the movie going on, so you can give it a go if you're interested, right? So thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys later.